Hey guys, let's talk about The Cat and the Canary, a very influential proto-horror movie from 1927. Why do I say proto-horror? So this is a Universal movie from 1927. Horror as we know it didn't exist in 1927. This is one of the movies that helped to create the horror genre, especially the universal horror genre as we know it. So this is before Dracula, before Frankenstein. In fact, James Whale, the director of Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, was so taken with The Cat and the Canary that he made his own kind of movie in the style of The Cat and the Canary, which is The Old Dark House, about 5 years after this. If you're put off by silent movies, if you're put off by the idea of something for the 20s, well, this video is for you because I want to assure you that this is a magical movie. This is the U.S. Blu-ray, so the US Blu-ray debut, let's put a star by that because about a decade ago there was a standard definition on Blu-ray release of The Cat and the Canary. This is a 4K restoration. If you're wondering why no 4K release when there's a 4K restoration, check out my interview with Kevin Lambert from Eureka. This is coming from Eureka. In fact, it's one of their 2 US launch titles. The other is Black Mask. Eureka has been serving the UK for decades and they are now embracing the US. And these are their first 2 US and UK titles that you can get on both sides of the pond. And it's part of their Masters of Cinema line. And that's important because this is directed by Paul Linney, the guy who would follow this movie with The Man Who Laughs, which was basically the influence on the Joker. You know, Bob Kane saw this and Bill Finger saw The Man Who Laughs. And they're like, let's pull that into the Joker for their fledgling Batman comic in the late 30s. Highly influential film from a very adept director. It's remarkable. So I know there are people who are going to be watching this that are like, well, I don't know, silent movie. Like I'd rather watch Scream 9. Well, so one of the things that I think really shines through in this movie is how when you take away these restorations afford us the opportunity to see these movies like we've never seen them before. Often when you're dealing with silent film, or even, particularly old movies, they look bad, right? They look bad. There's grain all over. We could barely make stuff out. This is degraded. This restoration is jaw-dropping. It is stunning. And when you lift away the barrier of all the decades and you see the movie as clean as it was almost 100 years ago, it becomes alive to you in a way that it probably hasn't before. And let's be clear, we're talking about the 20s, but it's not like it's, the Wild West or anything. There's cars and motorcycles and there's a telephone, there's electricity. I think sometimes people think that the 1920s, the 1930s are my favorite era for film. I think sometimes people think that, people are riding around on mules or something. It's a very modern setting. So the premise of this movie, as with many old Dark House movies that would come afterward, you probably already know the premise. There's a rich millionaire who lives on a hill. His relatives are just all over him. They want his money. He dies. And he writes in his will that his will is not to be opened until 20 years after his death. So it's been 20 years. This creepy old castle on the hill, this $1 million home, is dark, dilapidated. It's falling apart. It's creepy. It's a creepy old dark house, right? And all these vultures, these canaries, ascend to this house to have the will read to see if they get anything, because that's what they're there for. They want the old man's money, and he knows that. And so he has set into place all these elaborate conditions, and it just is a premise to have mayhem in old dark. I'm going to say, every time I say old dark house, don't take a shot because you'll be dead. But in an old dark house, right? And there's murder and there's mystery and there's intrigue, and we have the people that are the good people. We have the people that are the bad people. There's a lot of red herrings. It's a mystery. Listen, it is Murder by Death. It is Clue. It is all of these things. In a way, it's kind of Knives Out as well. I mean, this is not a new idea, but this is one of the movies that helped create that. I should mention it's based on a play from 1922, as many things are based on a play. And it's often credited as being the first old dark house movie. It's kind of, but not really. There were a few others. The problem is a lot of the other ones are lost now. They're gone. They do not exist anymore. But this is probably the one that everybody knows and that everybody acknowledges. Of course, it was remade in the 1930s. The 1939 version has Bob Hope and Paulette Goddard. And then they did a sequel to that, which is The Ghost Breakers. And then Martin and Lewis did their own version of The Ghost Breakers. And The Ghost Breakers itself goes back to like 1909 or something like that. Like, there's nothing really new. And something people call me out about when I talk about franchise fatigue. They're like, well, franchises have been around. Franchises and remakes have been around since the dawn of time. Yes, they have. But when they're as charming as this, it's... they're welcome. Like, yeah, please do that. Please keep that alive. You know, it's a joy. This movie's magnificent. It is incredibly well acted. The camera is a character in the movie. This movie does things you do not expect it to do. First of all, in addition to looking amazing, it does, the camera's always moving around. Like, it's not tethered to one spot. I think a lot of these movies, especially in the 30s, the early sound era, because of the limitations of how they would record sound, the camera was usually fairly locked off. Because that's not a condition here, this camera's going everywhere. It's going through the room. It's like zooming up on people. There's a lot of interesting first person, like point of view, first person perspective stuff where the people that are the actors, the characters in the scene are looking directly at us and talking to us. We become part of the action, part of the drama in the room. There's interesting things with the titles, the intertitles, which is, you know, the dialogue, which is in text form. There's a ton of stuff with light and shadows. Interestingly, Paul Linney didn't really want to be associated with that so much, and he made his mark in this field and then promptly died. He was 44 when he died, and he could have achieved so much more. As it is, he's not a footnote, but a lot of people don't know who he is. This is another reason to champion the release of this film. Listen, it's just magnificent. I'm going to hold this up and let you guys freeze this and read this. It has a myriad of special features that are all worth checking out. The problem is, a lot of these special features, I know this because I contribute special features to releases as well, commentaries, and you are commissioned to do your best to talk about the thing, right? Well, we've got like 6 or 7 different contributors here, and they're all basically saying the same thing. But because they're not working together, it's each like isolated little bits, right? So we've got about a 30-minute making of documentary, which is wonderful. When they quote someone, they have a person acting out the dialogue. Like if the film critic in 1927 said, "I don't think this movie is very good." It's really engagingly done, and they trade off. The narrator becomes another narrator, becomes another narrator. I think there's 3 narrators to this thing, and it kind of switches back and forth. Fascinatingly done. And then there's contribution. We got 3. There's 2 audio commentaries. By the way, I should mention the score is by Robert Israel, compiled, synchronized, and edited by Gillian B. Anderson. The cool thing about this score is that it is taking the cues from the original silent accompaniment. So when you saw this movie in 1927, it would be accompanied by a pianist or by a band, and they've taken the cues and recreated a score from that and synced it to the movie. So this is as close to his original presentation as we're going to get for this thing. We got an audio commentary by Stephen Jones and Kim Newman, another audio commentary by Kevin Lyons and Jonathan Rigby, a video essay by David Cairns and Fiona Watson, Pamela Hutchinson on The Cat and the Canary, Fong Lei on The Cat and the Canary. These are like talking head interviews where they've sat down with a scholar and they're talking about the film. Again, they all say essentially most of the same thing. They give you a history of Paul Linney. They talk about his death. They talk about The Old Dark House. They talk about The Man Who Laughs. They talk about Light and Shadow. There's not endless things to talk about, so there's a lot of overlap here. There's two extracts from the original play. It's like 3 minutes each. They're not long, and this the voice actors acting them out. And then this is interesting. Lucky Strike. Paul Linney gives a full-throated endorsement to the product that got him through filming The Cat and the Canary. It's a cigarette ad from like a magazine that they've dramatized with an actor doing Paul Linney talking about Lucky Strike cigarettes. And now when I was directing The Cat and the Canary, these cigarettes helped me get through the scenes. Fascinating stuff, guys. Then there's a collector's booklet. By the way, we do have alternate artwork here. There's a collector's booklet as well, which is, again, some of the most recognizable people that you would expect. Imogen Sarah Smith is here. She's on so many releases every single month. I admire it, and she's really become one of our greatest voices for dark cinema. Craig Ian Mann has contributed an essay, and Richard Combs has contributed an essay. Again, a lot of overlap. a lot of overlap. But I guess the good thing is you're getting all the information that you need, and you're like, there's no excuse to watch the special features and then not know, like, yeah, but what is the Cat and the Canary? Like, you will know by the time you've spent any time with this disc. You will know. And it is, listen, I'm not making any commission off of this. Well, if you buy it through Amazon, I do get a small commission. So link in the description of this video with my Amazon link. And every video has an Amazon affiliate link. And if you use that link, anything you buy through Amazon helps Cereal at Midnight out. It's a way that we can continue to sidestep ads and sponsorships and like mattresses and stamps and all that stuff. I do endorse this disc. I think it's pretty fantastic. As a guy who loves the golden age of Hollywood, and this would arguably fall into like a pre-era, right? This is the silent era. This is the early Hollywood before sound. This is an area of special interest for me, and this is one of the best discs we have so far, chronicling a wonderful film that is funny and scary and creepy, and I recommend it. I don't often just flat out say I think this is probably, like, if you're interested, if any of this resonates with you, I think that you'll feel pretty good picking this up. And it's a cool thing for Eureka too, because as they enter the US market, I know they need some support for these releases, and they are running the spectrum here, right? We've got like a martial arts movie from the Millennium era, and we've got 1927 silent horror. Let's support stuff like this if we're interested in it. So that's my review of The Cat and the Canary, but I want to know what you guys think about it. I understand a lot of you probably haven't seen it. Have you seen any of the sequel not the sequels? Have you seen any of the later versions of the film? Because it's been remade multiple times over the years. Let's talk about it all. Let's use these videos as an opportunity to talk about movies. Not just about collecting, not just about slipcovers or special features, but about movies. Movie love will always connect with other people who love movies as well. So let's lead with that. Let's let our love of movies lead us. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Take care. Till next time, I will catch you later.